Welcome to Startup Jab.
You get our lighters out.
Exactly. Yeah. At some point, I'm going to get a legit lighter to do during that. And at some point, I'm going to learn how to time my hand chopping motions to the actual song. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Startup Jab episode 21, where we are joined by the wonderful crew from Rocketkoi. Mal, Sarah, thank you guys so much for joining us.
No problem.
Excellent. Teague, my co-host, the peanut butter to my jelly, the chocolate to, well, also my peanut butter. How are you, my friend? You've been a little under the weather. You feeling better?
I am either alive or undead. Either way, doing pretty well.
So Schrodinger zombie. I like that. I can go with that.
Yeah, Schrodinger zombie. I like that too. Yeah.
There we go.
I figure either I'm alive or I've somehow developed superpowers. So I'm fine either way.
I like it. Before we jump in and chat with Mal and Sarah, I got to ask Teague, how's everything going with your business? Everything all right?
There has been very little going on in my business in the last week. So I've been mostly in bed.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad to hear. Things at mine are crazy, so I was hoping that you would agree with that. But no, apparently you're sick, so you get to stay home and hang out. Must be nice. I'm glad you're feeling better. Yeah. Very cool. Well, let us not delay. We will not dilly nor dally. Let's jump right in. So with us today are Mal and Sarah from Rocketkoi. They are both owners and proprietors. And amongst their many different projects, they've worked, Mal has worked at PBS Kids and is formerly an interactive art director. Sarah has more than 16 years of experience at web design agencies, branding firms, and a bookbinding studio. We'll definitely get to that. And the question of whether print is dead or not, here's a hint. It's not dead, but it's not growing. So yeah, thank you both for joining us. We really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm in Rocketkoi Station Alpha, and Sarah's in Rocketkoi Station Beta.
Nice.
So one thing we'll have to do is make sure that we don't talk over each other. I just realized.
You know what? Teague and I do it all the time. Our listeners have only raised the pitchforks once or twice. I think you'll be fine. I promise.
All right.
Indeed.
Excellent.
Yeah. So before we get into some of the more nitty-gritty stuff, I'd love it if you guys could tell the audience who may not be familiar with you what Rocketkoi is, how it got started, and what brought you two together.
Do you want to do the spiel or me?
You can do it this time.
Okay.
We rotate.
Okay. See if I can get it right. We are Rocketkoi. We are a graphic design firm that provides creative services to small to medium-sized businesses. What that means is we make all of the pretty things. We do websites. We do illustration work. We do print design. It is not dead. We've been in business coming on 2 years in February. I think that's right. Sarah was out on her own first for a year, and I joined her soon after. Both of us, thanks to your charming intro, both of us have worked in the field for a while. My road was PBS Kids, then over to Sapient and Forum One, two great firms here in DC. And then off on our own in the grand adventure of Rocketkoi. And Sarah's went various routes up in New York for starting at an interactive firm, a place called Firstborn, and navigating into making and designing books, and then coming down our way, working over at a place called Media Barn. And now she's part of Rocketkoi.
Excellent.
I like this. I feel like I'm in the Brady Bunch. She
the funny thing is
president, because she started it first.
There you go.
How we got together, how we started this crazy journey. We actually both met at the University of Maryland.
Excellent.
Sarah taught me how to make websites. She saw one I made and said, "That is god awful.
Terrible.
Don't ever do that again. I'm going to show you how to do
that." Is the correct response in those moments.
Guy needs my help.
It was real bad, really, really bad. And so she taught me HTML and she taught me CSS. We learned it in our dorm rooms. She went off to SUNY New Paltz. I stayed a proud Terp. And then over the years, we just saw this need for a firm like ours that can help small to medium-sized businesses when they're ready to invest and grow up a little bit. When they understand that their visual communication needs have gone past what they can do in online quick services like a Squarespace or logo generators or something that they made in Microsoft Word, because they want to stand apart from the crowd. And so we're here to provide them that value. A lot of our great clients can't necessarily shell out for those larger firms in the area.
Yeah.
So they need someone with the experience that Sarah and I have to get them where they need to go with their budgets.
Nice.
And here we are. Oh,
Indeed.
and full transparency, she's my wife.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. It's a husband-wife thing. No, that's not fine.
It is.
Well, and you guys, for those that aren't familiar, you guys are based in Alexandria, Virginia. So you're actually, you're down the street from both myself and Teague. I'm based in the One Bread Factory in Shaw near Howard University.
Oh.
And Teague is on that side of the river with you guys because I don't cross down
true.
there. Yeah.
It is true.
Yep.
It is-
I grew up.
No
I grew up.
one easier is.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in Maryland. I'm not legally allowed to, as per the Division
you're right.
of Assets. That's how that went.
Hey,
Yeah.
I grew up in Maryland too.
Yeah.
So did I.
Yeah. And you went to.
Oh, I'm the odd one out.
All right. We're all the odd ones here. Very cool. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your design philosophies and backgrounds. And actually, I think it's probably worth pointing out. So, Teague was at PBS as well in Interactive, and I worked at PBS in digital distribution at one point. And so we're very familiar with sort of the challenges that can be, when you work for a company that's as old and as established as PBS. What is it that you guys bring to the table in terms of your design aesthetic and your sort of philosophy when it comes to building out, new design and new thought process for your clients?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Thanks. I worked on that one.
That's
Yeah.
why we pay him the big bucks.
Yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind is that we have such varied backgrounds that we have slightly different ideas and aesthetics, but they kind of blend well. And how we work usually is actually one of us will take lead on a project and the other one will kind of serve as backup. So if I'm lead, I might say, you know what, I actually need an illustration for this. Malcolm is the illustrator. I'll pull him in. We'll work on it together. But we do a lot of client discovery together, which is nice because we have two different points of views. I've worked at only small agencies. At the book binding studio, I was the only employee. It was me and a manager.
Oh, wow.
And Malcolm has, in-house experience at PBS. So we're pretty varied, which brings some different perspectives for our clients.
Absolutely.
How did you guys start working that way? How did you discover that was a way that worked for you?
We started right away like that. Yeah,
No
one thing
shortcuts.
one thing that we found that we didn't like working at agencies was something we called designer deathmatch, where everybody does a comp and then the client creates a Franken comp out of that and says, I want the header from this one and the footer for this one, and then the person working on it kind of loses ownership of it. So we got comfortable working with a lead and a sub, so it's worked really well.
Nice.
Plus, no one's stepping on each other's toes.
Exactly. We also know that from a personnel, lots of times with how we work, we start off any client interaction, even if it's a lead, if it's actually signed on the dotted line work. All of these experiences start with this little 30 to 45-minute phone call that we have with folks, so we can actually learn about their personalities, which helps us decide if we're the right fit at all. Because you're spending a lot of time with these people if the contract gets signed on the dotted line, so you better get along to a certain extent.
Sure.
Actually, to a high extent. But what that also helps is with Sarah and I, we know who might be a better sense, both from their existing kind of tastes, both visually and from what you're working on, sort of side of the house. It's possible if they have a more illustrative aesthetic sense, if they're talking about things in a really, just because of my background playing with Angular, if they kind of lead with the tech, I kind of become a lead. If they lead with the relationship or a different type of structure, Sarah might be the lead, or we might just say, I really want to be the lead on this. Let me do it.
Yeah.
And then the other person goes, okay.
And sometimes it's just, personality. I might click with a client a little bit more than Malcolm does.
Yep.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because we're all humans, so that's a big part of our process. And anytime we've kind of gone against that grain, it's gone a little squirrely. There was an early project where I tried to be the design lead on one where my aesthetic was wrong. It was incorrect for the client.
I want to jump in here because Sarah's laughter clearly means that there's more to this story. Without revealing client names, I don't want to call anybody out. Well, can you just describe in general broad strokes maybe why Mal wasn't the right fit here?
Well, part of it was I was on vacation, so Mal had to do the first round of design.
Yeah.
I don't know why he didn't click with them.
It's just an aesthetic thing.
Sure,
it's
absolutely.
part of the design world. You know, every designer's different. Every designer has different sensibilities and different tastes. No matter how much we say we can design for anyone.
That one's also really print heavy, which is definitely more my thing than Malcolm's.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Well, and that's something I was curious about because it seems like a lot of the work that you guys do is very, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like most of it's in the digital space. Are you still doing print media, print sort of, more old school kind of work? And if not, was that a conscious choice to move away from that? Or was that just more the way that the market is going? It was that was a lot of question. I'm sorry. What are you guys seeing right now in the marketplace?
Two things, I think. What we're seeing right now in the marketplace is basically the connotation that a print design work is old school is gone.
Okay.
It's been a return to the world where, you know what, sometimes doing a nice printed card, a nice printed invitation to an event adds a lot of credence and adds a nice human element to whatever the client is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what we do with a digital screen, at a certain point that gets lost. People still have those connotations of they pick up and hold something and the paper feels a certain way. It triggers like little parts of your brain in really neat ways. So I would say we're actually almost 50-50 at this point.
Nice. Okay.
Even with a lot more we've gotten a lot more illustration work coming in the door lately, which has been nice. And if anything, that's been, people felt like they wanted stock or they wanted, material or flat design. So the illustration style there is very stark, and they're actually swinging towards wanting to see some more, even if it's made digitally, ink lines, made with a human hand.
Yeah.
That's coming a lot more, but we don't have really a dog in that fight. We just want to make stuff that works for our clients' personalities.
Totally. That's really cool. I think that attitude is, I think it satisfies both the business need of going to a designer or a design team in the first place, while at the same time maintaining the integrity of the aesthetic. I think that, one of the challenges, and, I don't know, full disclosure, I help run a team that does, creative and marketing and technology up here in DC. And one of the things that we see a lot are people who they want a lot. They don't really know what a lot means, but they want a lot and they want it to look good and they don't want to pay a lot for it. And finding a way to balance that conversation has been a constant challenge for us to help educate and help people understand that the things that they may have in their heads in terms of what's right and what's wrong may not be it may not be sort of the way people are thinking, whether it's with an aesthetic with a website or doing things in print because there's an added elegance and elevation to it now. I'm sure you guys must hit that wall as well sometimes.
All the time.
Yeah. Do you run it?
Yeah, exactly.
Caviar dreams on
budget? That's part of our job is to manage, not manage. That sounds like the wrong word. Yeah. Create expectations.
Build,
with
develop.
The client.
Yeah.
That the develop.
Yeah, I like develop.
Yeah.
I like develop.
Clarify.
Stolen.
Clarify.
It's yours. I think I stole it from a guy I know. Anyway.
Everyone always says manage.
Yeah.
And I just realized that. It's part of our job is to develop those expectations together. It's not, at least for us in our perspective, it is not our job to show up at a meeting and say, this is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And this is what you should do. We don't, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To walk into a meeting and do that creates a defensive posture from both ends, and it sets you up for having false expectation on what the outcome is going to be. Right. So by us coming in and being like, what are you looking for? What do you do? Let's work together to create a solution. We have recommendations.
Yeah.
We have very strong recommendations.
Right. Well, and of course you do, because you've been doing this for a while. You have this experience. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. And then we work together to figure it out. And over time, sometimes that turns into a really cool, like printed card with a really neat illustration and a nice spot varnish on the front of it. We just did that for one of our clients.
Nice.
Other times it's, you know what? No, we've talked to folks and said, you actually don't need to hire us. Go get a website on Squarespace and we'll talk to you later.
Wow. Bold strategy, Cotton. Yeah.
Like, don't spend your money yet. You're not there for that type of investment. Talk to us again in 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure that, yeah, exactly. And that's, and the hope is that sometimes they get to that stage at some point, and once they've outgrown that site, they'll actually come back because you told it to them straight the first time.
Which has happened. People appreciate that type of honesty in the business. Yeah. A lot of clients that we've worked with, we hear horror stories of folks getting burned, and it makes us want to flip our computers out the window.
Yeah.
Thanks for burning them, everybody, so they can come to us and we can help them.
Yeah.
But, you got to treat these folks with respect. They're making major investments, especially at the small business side. That's a big part of their operating costs, getting a new website, getting some illustration work, getting some logo work done.
Yeah.
And you got to walk into that with some respect and understanding as a designer. Like, this is money they have chosen to do this, and this is a good chunk of change.
Yeah.
If we burn them, then
so what are some
that's
of the
not
things,
fair.
Yeah. So what are some of the things you look for as the signs for, this company is, this person is not ready yet for what we do, and we should tell them
I'd
to do
love to hear
Squarespace
specifically
instead.
because I think one of the things that I was looking over the notes from our pre-interview. One of the things is that it sounds like you guys intentionally don't work with startups. Is that true? Did I read that right?
Yeah.
Yes. Tell us.
And that's
about
okay.
that
I'm
too.
just curious.
Yeah, we say that, but then we do work with startups.
Oh, you're liars.
Yeah, Malcolm. Yeah, Malcolm could go into that a little bit more because he's working with a startup on a part-time basis, actually about 40% time right now.
Yeah, that's where I was earlier today. Hi, Speak Agent. Hello. If any of them are watching or listening. Do you want to start, Sarah, to talk about what we look for with folks? I feel like I'm running my mouth a little.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, you're doing a good job. Hear a nod for a minute.
Okay, so let's do that. That's another like two-parter sort of big question. Let's start with the startup thing, and I think that'll help coalesce into the who do we work for that we think we're the right fit for.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason we say that, the reason we have this kind of introductory line in the same with startup is what we mean is we are better suited for organizations, not just businesses, also organizations. A lot of our clients are, good, really great .orgs. Are folks who kind of know where they're going to an extent, as much as any of us ever do at any day of the week. But immediate hardcore pivots aren't in the near future. Reason being is because what we provide are creative services about communication. So if we're kind of marching down a road and suddenly someone comes in and makes a full left turn, a lot of the work that we've worked towards gets thrown out the window. And then we have to have conversations on why timelines have to change, why, expectations, print costs could change if those pivots turn at the last second, because that's the business we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And experience is had in very traditional technological startups, that risk is much higher than a business that has been around for a year or two, right? That being said, they're still startups. They're still, everyone's a freaking startup. Like, we're a startup. We've only been around for 2 years. But we know we took the time to kind of know where we're going and know what we're doing. The group I work with, Speak Agent, we're working in the language space. We're working with helping folks. One of our taglines is helping kids say what they say, how they want to say it. Whether you're learning a language, whether we're experimenting with some other stuff that we have grants for. So it all is around that singular roadmap, that singular idea. Mm-hmm. So that, from a design standpoint, we can move forward with. We can help with, because we can always go back to that position. If someone has come with a startup and they're suddenly like, nope, found a new idea, I'm now going over here and getting distracted. That's tough. That's just tough for us. There's a lot of designers that seriously kick ass at that, just mind-blowingly are great at that.
Yeah.
That is not Sarah and I. If nothing else, we get a little frustrated.
Yeah.
And that's our personality. It's our nature. So to go to the beginning part of that question, if we're working with a 30 to 45 minute conversation, we actually go into what does this company do? How do they talk about themselves? Mm-hmm. Can they, even if it's not preferably not in a canned tagline kind of way, it's as humans.
Yeah.
And we hear if they get a little excited about what they're doing. We hear if they start going into examples of what they worked on and who they're making things for. And that we hook into so quick. And it helps us get excited, and it helps us understand what they're doing, and it helps us make a better product for them, right? Because at the end of the day, again, we're working with their money, and we want to make something that they can get excited about, that they can get out the door. And so that's where, we don't work with startups. It's that, like, let's talk to you first. Let's see what you've been through. Let's see where you're going, and see if we can go on that journey with you. I think that sounds all right. I think I got it all.
Yeah, that's cool. So then, beyond the not wanting to work with startups, partly because it's not a great fit for what you guys want to do, what do you look for? What signs do you look for in the companies that do sort of pass that first screen for, is this going to work well?
Can they deal with really bad jokes? Because I make really bad jokes.
Really bad puns.
Really bad jokes. I'm so sorry.
No, don't. Hey, you and me, same boat. You are in good company, my friend. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're in the right crowd here. Yeah,
I don't know. Let's see. A couple good ones are gut checks. What I call is like my spidey sense. Please don't sue me, Marvel Comics, for saying that. Mm-hmm. We look at. Do they understand one of the questions we ask, have they been through the web design process before, right? Yeah. And we're not looking for actually a yes or no, because a lot of people have, people haven't. That's the circumstances in their career. What we're looking for is, do they understand that this is a process? Just talking about the digital space in a website for a second, creating a website is a process. It is way more work than anyone ever thinks it is. And it is not just Sarah and I go away, vanish, type a bunch of code, and ta-da, it's a beautiful thing. Are they willing to have a conversation? Are they willing to go through a discovery process?
You mean
we
you're
are
not a
not.
black box with inputs and outputs?
The thing is, everyone actually understands that. Every client actually understands that.
Yeah.
Are they willing to have a conversation about it up front?
Yeah.
I think our best clients all say, oh, yeah, we know it's work. And what that does between the business and the designer, whoever the designer is, whoever the firm is and the client is, right away, that creates respect. That creates, it begins to establish trust. Knowing that you, client, are the expert in what you do. I'm not here to tell you how to do what you do or how to say what you say. If you need help refining that, we're going to go call the Good Lemon and be like, help us.
Yes, our good friends at the Good Lemon.
Exactly. We're going to call them and get their help. But then the client knows that they're talking to us because they know we know how to make websites, and they know that we've done it before for past clients and we've succeeded. And so that respect and that trust really starts right from the beginning. And if we start sensing that, and that becomes from, a combined, 25 years experience. Yeah, whatever it is. It's such a weird phrase. I don't know why that's in our industry. A combined experience, like Sarah and I fuse into one like super thing, like somebody from Steven Universe.
The combined experience of an army of 5-year-olds.
That comes from time. We've been in the game for a while. We can kind of suss that stuff out. There isn't really a magic sauce to do it.
Well, so I want to pivot away for just a second. Sarah, you've been notoriously quiet, so I'm going to pose this question to you first.
Tend to be.
And by notoriously, I don't know why that word came out.
Notorious.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. The coffee may have some whiskey in it. But Sarah, so you've mentioned that you worked in a lot of smaller agencies.
Yeah.
Exclusively, it sounds like.
Yes.
Being on a 2-person team, particularly with your husband, what are the challenges in terms of having a very small team? What's the dynamic, the hat, sort of the exchanging of hats in terms of who does what job? Where do you find that balance?
well, like I said before, we'll each lead up a project and then fill in where the other one needs help. So, for example, Malcolm might design a website, and then I might come in and dev it in WordPress. I have a little bit more WordPress experience than Malcolm, so that's like a pretty easy division. Mal does all the illustration. Sometimes I need a little art direction on something if I'm really stuck, and so Malcolm will come in and we'll brainstorm. But we haven't really had any really big challenges with the 2-person team, and it might be because I've always worked on teams between 2 and like 15 people max.
Yeah. Which do you prefer, the smaller end or the higher end of the spectrum? Of that
small.
spectrum?
Yeah, I really like working on small teams.
Yeah.
I like having my hands in a lot of different things. I like dealing with the printers. I like doing the design work. I like doing the dev work. So it's a really good situation for me.
Interesting. So you don't see yourself maybe at some point wanting to get out of the weeds and sort of run a team rather than actually sort of really driving the work?
No, I think I could be happy being a designer forever.
I like
doing the work. Yeah.
Well, one of the things.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Maybe some people aren't meant to be managers. I like, maybe like mentoring a little bit, but yeah.
No, I get that.
No, I'm firmly of the mind that management should not be the culmination of technical tracks.
Yeah.
That it should be parallel, right? We have people who do management and people who do various technical specializations like design or programming or
I think everybody thinks everybody has to eventually graduate into a management role, but it's not right for everybody. There could be managers and then subject matter experts. Like there's.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you've spent your entire career doing design, why would you take someone like that out of doing the design and make them learn management? Right? Why not like let that person continue being really
and
great
I've seen
at
a lot of managers and creative directors and art directors that hate it. They're miserable. Malcolm actually is really happy to not be managing a team anymore. Even though he is awesome at it, and I think he likes it, but it's a lot to take on.
I would imagine it could be.
So if you like managing a team a little bit, but you're not doing it for work now. Mal. Sorry, I'm looking at you and realizing you can't actually.
Come on, this is episode 21, man. That's
you should do it like Brady, but you just like point up at me. You can point that way.
The funny thing is,
they're different.
So on my screen, you're above me. They've moved. So we don't actually all have exactly the same orientation, which we noticed the first time we looked at the replay of it. We were all pointing in the wrong place and stuff. But no, so Mal, you're not getting the management stuff in your work anymore. Are you finding any hobbies or things like that where you sort of get to stretch those management muscles?
Hobbies.
Organizing a soccer team.
That sounds like the nerdiest hobby. I have a management hobby. After hours, I go to management class and do management happy hours.
I boss my cats around.
That's
exactly.
Totally my kind of people.
Tell our chief fur officer Buzz to like go supervise things.
I'm sorry, chief fur officer.
Oh yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we know who's making up titles left and right over here.
I warned you.
It's you need a CFO.
Wait, I will find a photo.
I don't. It's interesting. I'm going to answer this one a little weirdly. So I actually do enjoy the mentorship aspect of management. I enjoy helping folks figure things out. It's a big part of what we do at Rocketkoi as designers. Our job isn't always to make things. It is to help people figure stuff out, right? At the end of the day, it's what we do. So I still get a ton of that with the people we work with, working with Sarah. Sarah helps me also, even though she doesn't realize it, do the same thing sometimes. Like she could easily have art director in front of her name because almost every design we do here goes between both of our eyes, right? You need that outside perspective to see the forest for the trees. You have to.
Yeah.
You're going to miss things, especially with Sarah and I, who we have different aesthetics. So getting that non-yes person to look at something is going to make it better, especially when they understand feedback, especially when they understand how to provide feedback, how to structure a conversation around design. I used to teach. That actually scratched the true mentorship itch for a while. I was an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland for interactive web design and advanced web design. So I've stayed connected to those groups and to the people there. So I get to pop up now and again, do portfolio reviews, guest lecture, stuff like that. So that scratches that part of it, because it's not so much like the wanting to talk to people thing, even though I talk a lot. It's more of a helping designers get better and solve their problems. That's the part. But I do it every day.
Yeah.
And like Sarah said, what I don't miss, and one of the reasons we made Rocketkoi is, I don't miss having to do. Unlike most new businesses, we're not looking to grow. We're not looking in 2 years to double our size or triple our size or anything, because it's nice with Rocketkoi to not be responsible for other people. Which is, and it's honest. It's what people ask us. Why aren't you trying to grow? Do you need more designers? No. Right now, we like focusing on the clients and the work. So if I'm not satisfying that part of my brain, that's fine. I can satisfy other parts of my brain in other ways to achieve those same needs.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I wanted to go to something you said just a minute ago about giving feedback and how to give good design feedback, because I think that's a valuable skill that more people should be aware of. And so I'd love to hear both of you guys tell us how to give good design feedback. Are there some basic rules, particularly, I guess, for the non-designers among us, how to give good design feedback to a designer so that your designer doesn't go away saying, "Oh my God, this person's an idiot."
Right. So when I yell, "This sucks, start over," and I get a negative response, tell me know why. That would really be.
Why do I get a negative response to that?
Why is this not great? Yeah.
There's a ton of things. The basic rule of thumb to always follow when providing feedback is don't start with a prescriptive item. Do not start with a how. If you're starting with a how, you're getting into the details of something, and that trust really quickly starts to break down. And what I mean by a how is make that bigger.
Okay.
That doesn't really mean anything. And it might actually not be the right answer to what you're trying to do. Let's say you're trying to make send button bigger. Okay, like you have a form, that send button bigger should be bigger. Okay, why? Should be the first thing any good designer asks is why. Response should not be okay from the designer as well. We have to take the responsibility and say, wait, you're asking us to make that bigger in a very specific way. How come?
Right.
And the answer could actually be, I think I want more people to complete this form. To which then a responsible designer says, oh, that is a totally different problem than what you're saying right now.
Right.
Let's take 15 minutes and look at this responsibly. Okay. Wait, we could actually, you want more people to complete this transaction on this form? Can we promote this form in different ways on the website? Can we eliminate stuff that's all around this form?
Yeah.
That can make it more focused, more clear, and that becomes a conversation. And the second you do that, you're going to have a better result that makes everybody happy. Because I am the designer and listening to you, client, say, or you, team leader, say, here's what I'm actually getting at, which then we can both contribute ideas, right? And we're both being heard, we're both contributing ideas, and boom, you solve the problem. And then you do it again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
I think that's the heart of it. Am I missing anything?
No, yeah. Well, with any piece of feedback, say why. Like, even if it's not a prescriptive thing that you said, always say why.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we send questions to think about while people are reviewing designs to help guide the feedback, which is really valuable for a designer to do. I'm not sure if everybody does that. Something you could ask designers, like, what should I be looking at with this comp? What do you want me to pay attention to? Just to keep the dialogue open. Yeah.
Well, and I imagine that by even just asking the bare bones question why, you probably get answers that sometimes reflect back on the person to make them realize where their to help them understand where their thought process can be better. And we had somebody the other day who wanted us to build them a mobile app. So we said, well, why do you want this to be a mobile app? It could just as easily be, a responsive mobile site. And their response was, because it's trendy. And my response was, that's a bad answer. because that's a waste of thousands of dollars. You don't. When we could just use, reactive and make it really pretty if somebody logs onto a website. If you had said, because we need push notifications to be timely, that's a different answer. So, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, no.
It's buzzword bingo is not a good way to design.
That's a shame. That's how I built most of my websites.
And it is, but the thing is, with the industry we work in, it's become a common vernacular. Like we can't knock people for using those buzzwords and using buzzwords. This is made up a thing. Buzzwords. Buzzwords. I know.
Buzzwords. It's Colorado.
Buzzwords and using that stuff that they hear. That's no fault of anybody. And especially because I would say on the tech, and I really like the way you said this, Teague, like the technical side of the house, be it developer, be it designer, we love using them to sound really smart at talks. Like we love showing up at a talk and being like, pew, pew, pew.
So true.
We're going to do parallax and mobile apps. And, we did this adaptive. No, it's responsive. And then we argue about it.
And a hero image. I don't know what it is, but it's got a hero in it, right?
A big image at the top of a website, even though you might not have any images.
Feature
and that's not anybody's fault because we say people shouldn't use them and then we use them in talks, right? So then they hear them and then they spit them back at us. Mm-hmm. We say, you're using that wrong. And they say, we didn't know that. And we and it's not limited to just we're rude and snotty about them. As opposed to saying, okay, this is what you're saying. Does this mean it's like the Princess Bride? I don't think that word means what you think it means.
Anybody want a peanut?
Exactly. And we have to be the ones to own up to that and have a responsible conversation and say, wait, you said mobile app? What's the goal of that?
Right.
And if it does distill down to trendy, then you do that exact thing. You're like, wait, we can save you money and you can use that budget to make this website even awesomer. And here's how.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that as part of a conversation, no one's happy at the end of the day.
Yeah. And the buzzword stuff and the sort of talking inside baseball is not limited to just design or just programming either. I mean, even it happens in management all the time. I mean, listen to a couple management consultants talk for 5 minutes and you will see exactly the same thing. I think it's on some level, it's anytime you get two people from the same industry together, they throw a bunch of these words at each other sort of as a way to feel each other out. And it's a shibboleth, right? It's does this person understand the same things I understand? Have we read the same books? What shared terms do we have so that we can, go ahead without building up from the base foundation of like everything there is to know about design or everything there is to know about programming.
Exactly. And by the way, if anybody didn't get the reference to shibboleth, I'm putting in a link to and we'll make it shirts in the show notes too. I'm putting in a link to the West Wing episode to which Teague is referring because I know that he's using it to refer to a code word that only people in the know would use. But if you need a more specific example of what the hell he's talking about, I've given you an example because he throws these words out there like everybody is so smart. And you know what? Some of us are not, Teague. Some of us can admit that we're not that smart. I am hurt by your constant insulting of my intelligence with your vocabulary, sir.
Love you, Jason.
Nothing is so evil.
Right. Well, the truth is, since I've watched West Wing as many times as he has, of course, I got the reference. But more to the point, I totally haven't. I will fight you, sir. I will win that West Wing trivia. I assure you. I think that Katie's threatening to destroy us all. Well, do you think that the fact – let me ask this question of both of you. Do you think the fact that we now sort of professionally live in a world where people are using these terms a lot more freely and they feel like that they're using them, has that opened doors of conversation around design for those that don't study it that make those conversations easier in the long term? So the fact that people are trying to be more considerate of design, even if they're not educated in it, is this a good sign that maybe things are benefiting designers more than they have in the past? That's a good answer. All right. Solid.
Do you like that?
Jason coming up with the stumpers again.
Let me ask it another way. Have your clients and customers gotten smarter about design over time?
Oh God, yes.
Okay. See, that's what I was asking for. Okay.
I would say, man.
Yeah, this is a hard question.
It's a hard question. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very hard question.
But, on the one hand, some people think they know too much You know, we'll have people saying, why would something like that take you 20 hours to do? Like, you know, I found someone that said they're going to do it for $300 because, you know, they have Photoshop. I mean, that happens. But then on the other hand, it does open up more opportunities for conversation with potential clients who, you know, they think they have an idea of what they want, but they're not sure, and they need us to help them figure out what they actually need and what they're actually asking for. So that's kind of two different things going on.
Exactly. It's not it's not a case. So doors are being opened because people know the vernacular, right? Design is in the news now more than it has ever been. Facebook changes a button and it's on like headlines, right?
Which is so bizarre.
But the important thing that does it, it means that people have emotional resonance with what we're doing. And they understand that it's important. They might not know why, but they know that it is. And that's what opens up really cool conversations. Like we get into really, really deep philosophical art theory conversations sometimes with our clients. And they want to hear that stuff from us.
That's got to be pretty cool.
They want to know why we picked blue, which we should always be telling our clients anyway, but now they actually absorb it like a sponge. And what it does is if they really do hear it and they're open to the conversation, it creates more trust in the conversation, both from them trusting our decisions, where eventually we don't have to write, you know, like, here's all the reasons we did X, Y, and Z. They know we did it with education. They know we did it with reason. But also, we love it when clients want to know why. We love it because that means they're listening. That means that they're paying attention to what's going on. And I do think that's a whole new world. I do think that's a new world. And I do think that's why it's the end of this is a total, I wish I had like a disclaimer sign, like this is the opinion of Rocketkoi, not the design industry.
Well, I think you nailed it. That was it. Yeah.
The end of, you
speak for all designers.
Disruption, right? Like walking into a place, we touched on this in the beginning, and wanting to be like, it's the, oh my God, I totally forgot his name in Mad Men. Don Draper. As much as I loved watching like design review meetings and that, the bad habit that was picked up by a lot of folks was like, that's how design should always be. And sometimes you do need to walk in and alcoholism and womanizing is how all designers should be. Sometimes you need to walk in and really say, I'm sorry. You're thinking about things really wrong right now. And here's what you're saying. Here's how you should think about them, right? But that should be the rarity. What should be is a conversation to move it forward and evolve it, not show up and shake up the world. And that's what this design education has brought about now. And it makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah. Well, let me ask this then. If you guys, all this conversation is happening, why not then grow, right? Why aim to be what your size, budgeting in a specific way to hit that? Why not take the opportunity then to bring more people under your umbrella? You have a clear sense of how you think of things and how you want to communicate with clients. Why not add more people to that?
Because I've gone down that road.
Yeah, okay. I think it goes back to what Malcolm said before. Right now, we're really enjoying only being responsible for us. And also, we like the size clients that we're working with right now. And if we added on designers, if we, got a nice fancy office space, our overhead goes up immediately, and then our prices go up immediately, and then suddenly we're working with different clients. So if that's in the short term, we're focused on not doing that, because we want to keep working with the people that we're working with.
Yeah.
We have been able to truly handpick our clients. That was a big reason we picked Rocketkoi, is we wanted to be more involved in the client selection process. And so having that power, the conversation then just becomes, Sarah and I, can we work with these folks? Is it something we can really get behind? And we're responsible to ourselves. If it goes squirrely, it's our fault. Right? If it goes great, it's our fault. Hooray! And that's wonderful. That's why we do what we do. We also want clients to know that when they're working with us, they're working with us. We go into the kickoff meetings. We're the ones doing the work. We're the ones up at 2:00 in the morning when it's deadline and we're finishing it. We're not going to we're not going to shortchange them. Not that firms that we've worked at have done that, but it is this like theory in the industry that you go into a place and you meet kind of their A team, and everybody's always worried that they're going to get the D team. It's this constant running fear. And it's a huge concern with smaller to medium-sized businesses, again, going back to the money they have and how they want to spend it. So it being just Sarah and I, we can go in and allay those fears and show them how enjoyable an experience it can be, ideally.
Yeah.
Like our job is to make it enjoyable. And then one day, you know, they might grow, they might expand, and then we're too small for them. You know, that could happen. And for us, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, that's not a bad thing to happen. It's a bad thing to happen because then we have to go find more work. But it's not a bad end of result. That means our work has helped them get to the next place. Yeah. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at clients and deciding whether you want to work with them and things like that, what does your ideal client look like? What's the perfect client for you guys?
Man, these are hard.
Yeah. These are not hard. We're not trying to make them hard. I just want to be clear. Just to take a second.
Let me rephrase that. It's not that it's
not trying. I don't want anybody to feel put on the spot. That's more important.
And it's not that. It's that we tend not to think like that all the time.
Okay, it's because our ideal client is someone that we click with. So, you know, we have that initial phone call and we hang up the phone and we say, oh, we really want to work with this team. Like, they are awesome. This is going to be such a fun project. Forgetting even what the project is, it's going to be fun because of the people that we're working with. Yeah. So that's the number one thing that we're looking for.
Hands down.
And that's something when you're looking for a designer to keep in mind. You're going to be working with your designers a lot. You want to like them. You know, it's like dating or looking for a roommate. You're going to be spending a lot of time with them. You don't want to be like, they could do it. I mean, they'll get the job done. It's okay. You want it to be like a really great relationship.
I don't know. I imagine there may be relationships where somebody looks at the other person and says, you'll get the job done.
Yeah,
so
but it doesn't last long.
No, that's true. That is true.
And it's
actually, so that's another thing that I wanted to talk about is the length of a design relationship. You guys talked a little bit about the idea of working with somebody on something that will get the job done now, and then think about, you know, leaving enough on the table to come back and, you know, refresh the website in 3 years instead of like trying to build this thing that's going to last them a decade and never have to be touched again. Talk to me about that, because that's not something that you see a whole lot of.
So websites, you know, it's a communication tool. Technology change happens at whatever that like law is that everybody says, like exponentially over time. It like doubles into like infinite. You know, tomorrow we don't even know what's going to happen. It could be the zombie apocalypse, you know, like who knows?
No.
Our relationships, we look for, here comes cheesy speak from me. We look for partnerships. Okay. Like for us, we want to help a client get from A to B, whatever that may be. Is it a project of doing Facebook graphics for a campaign? Is it a website? Is it illustrations, right? They're all trying to deliver a message of some sort. So that term of use of us, ideally, you know, a website could take 3 months, right? We like 12 weeks is like this little magic number. Shorter than that's tough sometimes. Longer than that means it's just a higher budget and more complicated, more discovery, more content strategy work. And then we try to explain to them through early phone calls, through what we're doing, that a website does not stop on the day it is launched. And we do turn the keys over to you, client, like it's theirs. They paid for it. Here you go. We use WordPress because it's open source. You know, you can find other WordPress firms, but know that this investment continues and will change, and that in 3 years you might have to change everything all over again.
Right.
And that's okay. That's all right. It might not be with us. Hopefully it is. Hopefully you like us and it is, because we can create continuity. We can help save some costs, and we know your business by that point in time. And you have talked to us, and we can continue to provide fresh perspectives, and you can save some costs there. You don't always have to go to a whole new firm to get it all redone all over again. At some point, you might want to do that. But, you know, you're going to have those big ramp-up costs all over again. So why not try to create a good partnership that you can go back to the well over and over again. And it creates, but for everybody it's different. For sometimes it's a 6-month engagement, sometimes it's a 3-month, sometimes with some of our clients we're going on year two and which means they've been with us from the beginning. Some of our clients have been with me since I've been a freelancer right out of college, so that's 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty long relationship with a designer.
You know, sometimes you're like, you want to change things, but they say, no, we really like what you did the first time. Can you just make it work for today's technology? And I say, okay.
Well, I really like this concept of coming back to it over and over again. And I think that on some level, as you know, more and more of this type of work gets shifted from, you know, in-house teams to consultants and freelancers and small firms, we've moved to an engagement-based model when a lot of these things used to be, you know, more long-term, right? If you had designers in-house, you would work with the same designers as long as they were working for the company, right? But we've lost some of that in the move to the gig economy. And I wonder what other industries we could also see benefit from this approach of building a longer-term relationship with service providers that, you know, used to be in-house and no longer are.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it reminds me of if you had a plumber, right? You got a plumber, comes, does really great work, really efficient work, charges a fair wage that you're willing to pay for. You're going to call that plumber again.
Right.
Like, you're not going to call another plumber and be like, I wanted to switch it up.
I'm going to disrupt my plumbing.
I'm going to switch up my plumbing today.
Somewhere a TechCrunch writer is crying and doesn't know why.
You know, and our industry, as it becomes gig-based, if we are a service-based industry, we should be striving to be that kick-ass plumber. Man, I want that kick-ass plumber. I want that kick-ass mechanic. I'm going to go back to that kick-ass mechanic. They know my personality. They know my automobile. When I buy a new car, I'm going back to the same kick-ass mechanic. And our industry has morphed both in-house and out-of-house, you know, gig-based. I like that term too. We should strive to be those kick-ass mechanics. I'd much rather be that.
I like that. I think, you know, and it's the same for, you know, your barber or a lot of these type of service providers, and that's one of the things that, you know, you don't see as much with a lot of the sort of on-demand apps and services coming along, right? Like with Uber, you just use whatever driver is handy, right? With Handy, you use whatever person they send you, and that is
nobody
part
uses
of the
Handy
problem
right now.
Well, yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean, when it's, you know, a matching algorithm to whoever happens to be, you know, available soonest or is most convenient, you lose that personal connection. And I think that it's easy to undervalue the impact that actually having some of that knowledge and that relationship with somebody can add to the service that you provide.
100 in every way, man.
What he said.
Yeah, well said.
So, boom, dynamite. All right. So we've got a few minutes left, and I want to ask both of you this question, and I'd like you to answer separately if it's at all possible. You started your business 2 years ago. You've been through the trenches of starting, growing, building it to where it is today. If you could go back to the beginning and tell yourself one thing, what would you go back and tell yourself? Oh, man. I gave the hardest of hard questions. All right.
What would I tell myself? I guess
that's good. The audio listeners are going, what the hell? Did I lose the feed? What the?
I know. It's a really tough one.
No, the audio listeners are having their fast forwarding through the blank
scrubbing on Winamp.
I mean, it's kind of like our biggest piece of advice sort of thing.
Sure.
Like, what advice would we give ourselves?
Sure.
Yeah, past us.
Well, so
I mean, it's really going back for me. It would be be patient with myself, frankly. This is hard.
Yeah.
This is hard. Having your own business is hard. Having a startup is hard. It is hard work. And it's easy to forget that. It is so easy to forget that, especially on the good days. Yeah. And that I would tell us to be more patient with ourselves on the bad days.
I like that.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I guess this is sort of related. It's okay to go slowly.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one. I feel like at first we actually took on so many projects. We took on projects before Malcolm even had his last day at work.
Wow.
And we just loaded our schedules so much because, you know, you had that fear, like, here we go, we're going. We need to like be working every second of the day. We were working nights and weekends, which isn't healthy. And something that we've really done over the past 2 years was stop doing that. It's okay to turn down work sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's okay to, you know, set those limits and go slowly and figure out what works for you.
We have a tenant now that we take on limited engagements with our clients. We created this tenant about 6 weeks into our business. So it is tried and true what we do. And
but it took a while to be able to actually do this because of,
that fear of being a new business. But anybody, you know, who we work with and what work we take on, they are our focus.
Yeah.
They understand we have other clients. They understand we have other businesses. I mean, we've got to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
But we pick few clients that we think we can do good work for, and we do good work.
Yeah.
And that is what matters. You know, you do good work. Don't worry about the next gig you're trying to get. Don't worry about the proposal you have to write. Like, that's not where your effort should be. They should be in the work you were doing. And we believe that from day one. It's one of the big reasons we started Rocketkoi was so we could do work for people. Like, we're not worried about that next proposal. And so we say no to work.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And these days, it's not a stressful thing. We will have to work hard to find new work. You know, we put in that time, but sometimes it's okay to say no.
I like that. I like that a lot. Before we wrap, apparently there's been a request. Teague, what is your answer to this?
To this stumper of a question,
because apparently Katie has decided she needs your answer. Not mine, mind you, but yours.
That's a tough one. I mean, I think you know, I'm kind of some of the things you guys are saying ring true for me also, right? Like be patient with yourself. It's okay to say no. I think that, you know, the biggest thing that probably that I stressed about was feeling like I was spinning my wheels with nowhere to go, and that I think, you know, sometimes it's okay to slow down in order to go faster in the right direction, and that's probably something that I could have used.
I like that.
We have an audience question. I see it. We got our first one.
We did. And you know what? We'll answer. We'll use the audience question as our closeout. We'll address it. So Miss Modular from the chat here on Blab is asking, but how do you focus on just doing good work and not the next gig when you have bills to pay? Right. So the difference between that urgent need to pay bills versus the more important staying true to your form and staying true to your tenant.
You put the two things together.
Okay.
Right. So if our big tenant is to do good quality work for our clients and work that speaks to their personality and speaks to who they are and their mission and what they're doing, right? That is going to pay our bills. Mm-hmm. Right. We estimated out the project ahead of time. We worked with them to understand their budget and what we can do for them inside of their budget. That all happens in like our pre-planning calls and discovery work. And so everyone has good shared understanding of connections. And then we just focus on kicking ass on whatever that may be. Like, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
And by doing what we think and what they think is kick-ass work, you know, we are able to have more work and more case studies to talk to other people about when either they come to us or we get recommended or we see an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so for that opportunity, we then roll that into those little conversations with whoever we're talking to, whatever we're talking about, because we can say, oh, we just did this thing and we're really proud of it. You might like it. Here you go. And what it does, it becomes this really neat cycle of work.
Yeah.
And the shill goes down, right? We're not out there being like, sup, hey, how's it going? Hey, how you doing? with like a weird, creepy, like evil twirly mustache.
See, but here's the thing. You've done such a good impression of me, and this is the first time we're meeting. So I now have questions about it. Have we met before? I appreciate that. Well, it sounds to me, just as we wrap up, it sounds to me like one of the tenets, more than even about the sort of the work you do or don't take, is that you have really held firm to the idea that you need to good work propagates good work, and that being selective doesn't mean not also feeling that stress about work, but not necessarily giving into the urgency of, I got to get something to pay my bills. And I think that's a really hard balance to strike. I think there are a lot of people who form their own business or do their own freelance work, or, I mean, even in the growth stage, when you have 20, 50, 100 people who still feel that need. I think it's really admirable that you guys have found a way to balance that satisfies your bank account while at the same time satisfies your personal and creative needs. I think that's really admirable.
You should have seen me like freaking out when we had to find new work about 2 months ago, and I probably would have had a different answer.
Sure, fair enough. There you go. Well, on that note, I want to take a second and just thank you guys again for your time. I know that you've got very busy lives even during the holiday season. We really do appreciate you joining us. Real quick for our audience, how can people get in touch with you? What is the best way to reach out to you if they have questions or follow-up, or maybe somebody wants to work with you?
We have a contact form on our website, and just the email address is hello@rocketkoi.com, and it comes to both of us.
Awesome. Love that.
You can also look at our Twitter. It's twitter.com/Rocketkoi.
Yeah, Rocketkoi.
Sweet.
You could just @Rocketkoi us. Those are our main two communication models. So come at us.
Awesome. Come at them, bro. Teague, how can everybody find you on the internet?
You can find me at Teague Hopkins on Twitter or at teaguehopkins.com.
Excellent. You can find me at Jason Ellis, or email me jason@brilliant, BRLLNT.co. Yes, that's brilliant without the vowels.co. And of course, you can join us each week here on Startup Jab, startupjab.com. Join our mailing list for an up-to-the-minute notification, or really day of, because sometimes they get sent out day of, and we got to work on that MailChimp trigger. Nonetheless, join us each week. Next week's episode, we will be doing a little bit of a review of the last 20 some odd episodes and looking forward to the next 1,000. Let's call it 1,000. What do you say, Teague? Yeah, that's a totally reasonable number. Cool. Yeah. Thank you guys again. Teague.
This was a blast.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
We're glad to have you. Teague, play us out, buddy.